there's so much we can talk about. And given the economy the way it is, there are lots that we can discuss about capitalism, the American race, the ideals, minimalism. And I know you have a very unique approach to finance and personal freedom, which, yeah, I can't wait to jump in. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on the show. And yeah, I think there's a lot of people who are going through a lot of the same struggles that both of us talk about. So looking forward to
Mm,
talking about it.
yay. Let's jump in. I've been getting a lot of feedback to say I think today I am particularly eager into diving deeper into, yeah, like I said, your experience as an unconventional minimalist and how authenticity um, can thrive in a society that sometimes value conformity over celebrating individual paths. So let's start a bit about you. Obviously, there are so many things you can tell us about yourself, so feel free. But I might start with one question that are on people's mind. When did you quit your job and why? How did it happen?
Yeah, so I quit my day job like 3 years ago now or something like that. So pretty much I got into this idea of financial independence and early retirement. I learned about it when I was like 18-ish, and then really started taking it seriously in my early 20s. And I ended up buying a couple of rental properties, and I was working like three different jobs, and YouTube being one of them. Um, and the rentals eventually allowed me to leave my job when I was 24, and then YouTube as
24?
I put more time into it. Yep.
24, 24.
Well, yeah, but like this kind of comes back to the unconventional lifestyle. Like we were living extremely frugally. It was me and my wife. Um, she also left her job like a couple months after I did. And it was because we were living frugally, we were living for free with house hacking, and then making, a little bit of money with YouTube and some other things. So it wasn't like total financial freedom, like living in pizza, but it was, we were able to do that and just work 1 or 2 days a week and have
Mm.
that cover all of the expenses. No big deal.
Oh, I know you have a unique approach to fire as well, which we will come to talk about. But quitting your job anyway at 24 is impressive. And I think that is the new American dream for many people. So, what is your definition of financial freedom, which is a hot topic these days?
I mean, like conventional financial freedom would be having, I would think, enough money that you could live off that money indefinitely. But for me, or like enough invested that you could live off the returns indefinitely. But for me, there's this idea of barista fire, which I'm super like into, which is if you can make enough off a couple investments, whether it's a stock market, a business, you or real estate, whatever it is, then you can work a couple days a week, make
Mm.
20, $30,000 a year, and that will sustain you for the rest of your life. You can do something you love, even if it doesn't make money and or make a lot of money, and you can do that. And that is, for me, kind of like the dream. Like I don't want to never work again because I get bored if I take one day off of like creating something, I like get really bored, which is a different struggle in and of itself. Like I still work, but it's because I love doing it so much. And I think that's the goal is to have something that like I look forward to Mondays. I don't like the weekends as much because I try not to work on them. So I think that's my dream and like being able to travel. We traveled for a month this year through Europe and did a couple other trips. And it's like having that freedom to work from anywhere, doing something that you love is like the ultimate dream for me, more than having $4 million in the bank and being able to live off of it indefinitely. Type of thing.
There's the lean fire I've heard of, the fat fire, and the barista, yeah,
Mhm.
barista fire. Mm. And how does that tie into, by the way, the book Essentialism? Big time fan, huge favorite. And I think you have this perspective of combining minimalism with essentialism to achieve your retirement goal. So is that what you've just explained there? That's basically your model.
I mean, kind of like I was originally into the fire movement.
Mm.
And as I got more into minimalism, I realized that they overlap so much because the fire movement is this idea of lowering your expenses and cutting out everything that you can so you can focus on reaching freedom as soon as possible. And this idea of minimalism is super simple, where or super similar, where you're trying to cut out all the non-essential stuff in your life so you have time and money to do the things that you want to do. Do you want to like never miss your kids' soccer games? Do you want to have more freedom to like go for walks and enjoy your life? And that all comes from like you have to say no to a bunch of stuff in order to say yes to other things. Because every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else.
Yeah.
And people just say yes indiscriminately to everything in their lives.
Mm.
So they really did come together for me and really helped me realize that we wanted to both be out of our jobs and enjoy like working from home and doing stuff so that we could spend time with our kids. We wanted to have a nice place to live. And we've been able to do those because we cut out maybe a bunch of things over the past couple of years that most people wouldn't even like think of doing in order to have that lifestyle. Now that we do have a little girl, we're able to spend time with her and do all those things because we put in time up front to kind of build that lifestyle, which most people would rather watch TV at night instead of like work an extra business at night that would eventually maybe give them freedom, or invest in something that's scary that might eventually give them freedom, but it also, could go bad. So uh, I think it's willing to take those trade-offs, for delayed gratification, I feel.
That makes really good sense. Although I think for many people, the idea of being a parent yet living so lean could be quite unthinkable and scary. Like, what about childcare? What about this and that? But you somehow made it work.
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't have to pay for childcare because my wife doesn't
Exactly.
work and I'm home. Like, um, I'm just upstairs working a couple hours a day. They're downstairs like baking right now. So, um, I don't know. Like a lot of people just work to pay for childcare and like stuff like that,
I think
and
what that
insurance and
mm, and I think what that highlights is a lot of things we think we must spend on are actually man-made constructs. Like they have
Mhm.
to go to piano lessons. Sorry, I'm Asian. Like they have to do this. They have to eat this expensive this and that. When actually, if you really think about it, maybe a lot of that is not necessary.
Yeah, and it's also people have become it again goes back to the saying yes. There are these things with kids where you like your kid's gone all day and then you pick them up and you bring them to a soccer practice or piano lessons or whatever, and then their days are just filled from morning till night with stuff, doing stuff, doing stuff, doing stuff. And like when do you have the time to just play together, to cook, to enjoy dinner together, to like live a normal life? And that's something that we're trying to get away from, like trying to find that balance, which is, it's hard. But you don't need to do everything and your kids don't need to do everything. And your kids, like Disney World might be cool, but also like my daughter loves watching the trash truck go by. It's like the highlight of her life. And, like you can find joy in so many things without spending money.
Mm. That reminds me of the 80-20 rules, where unknowingly we actually get 80% of the benefit from 20% of the stuff. Or that really applies to my wardrobe. I just always just ended up picking the two most comfortable things, and the rest of the fantasy clothing just lies in the back. Mm. And I think what you said about the doing, doing, doing also ties into it's a very capitalist, maybe American dream values. So can you talk a bit about how does your current lifestyle contrast to that, what most people chase or do, that kind of capitalist corporate race, the ladder?
Yeah. So, um, for me, I'm trying to like we're right now we're having a no spend month. That's something most people don't
What?
do, where we're not buying anything, but well, we're like buying food and gas and like nothing else pretty much.
Okay, so when I binge your YouTube content, I heard about the no spend day, and I was attempting that for myself and failed. And now we're talking about a no spend week. Sorry, month.
Well,
You
no,
said
a month.
month.
We do this a couple, yeah, we do this a couple times a year, but like it's not like you live your life. Like you can get the necessities like food and
Yeah.
yeah, gas and stuff like that, but no Amazon, no going to like just don't even walk in a store. Like really break a lot of those habits.
Mm,
And I forget what the original question was, but for me, this really helps us. realize that like this stuff that most people spend their lives for, we see an average of 10,000 ads per day, and then we
Mm,
buy all the stuff because we're programmed to do this. We're programmed to be consumers. And when you can break away from that by taking maybe a no spend month or whatever, then you can realize that this stuff added nothing to my life. Was I any less happy this month where I didn't buy anything as opposed to last month where I spent, $500 on random crap that I don't even remember what I bought last month? Like my happiness level did not change at all. So it's a really good like practice to like practice not doing the normal stuff, I guess.
that is amazing. That is amazing. But thank you for sharing that. How far in are you in your month?
I mean, we're like halfway through right now. I don't know what the date is actually. It's the 15th, so we're like
Yes.
almost
Oh
exactly
my
halfway
God.
through
Yes.
the month. Yeah, and we usually do one on January as well. So we'll be able to do a little bit during Christmas, but we're taking November and January to try to not spend as much as possible.
Well, you're looking
But
very
I
happy.
think like
Mm,
yeah, I think like what you talked about with the clothes, like most people wear 20% of their clothes 80% of the time, or even like 10% and 90%, which is this idea of the 90% rule from the book Essentialism. And I found that as well. Like I literally have certain shirts that I wear every single day, and the rest of them are just like, oh yeah, I like the idea of that one, but you never actually wear it.
yes.
So like if you
Yes.
just get rid of those and you put them in a box, then and you like put it away for a couple months and then go back to it, you might realize like I never even wore those, and then you can just donate them. And you always have these stuff where just in case I grow, I shrink, it's suddenly becomes, a different climate here or whatever it is, or I change my taste. But you can always go back and get that stuff. Like it's
Mm.
generally not that big of a deal. So that's
Say
something
more
that like
about the
I have
90.
all these just in case things.
Sorry, can you say more about the 90-10? I don't think many people are familiar with that.
Yeah, the 90-10 rule is very similar to the 80-20 rule. It's just um from the book Essentialism, he kind of says it's kind of that next level where it's not even 80-20, it's 90-10. And it's also, there's a couple different ways to use this. So one might be if something's not a 90 or above, you don't buy it. So if you don't absolutely love this, it's going to be your favorite shirt that you've ever worn in your entire life, then you don't buy it. And if you actually follow that rule, every shirt that you own will be the best shirt you've ever had and you love wearing it. And you can be as happy as possible because you spent way less stuff, way less money, way less stuff, and you have your favorites of everything in your entire house.
Yes.
That's a good way to live life, and most people see it as a bad way to live life. I don't get it. And then also, if somebody invites you to something and you don't really want to do it, but our default is to say yes to everything, and that's how we get cluttered schedules and we're busy and we can't even
Mm.
sleep. Um, it's not a 90 or above. Say no. Like it's not that big of a deal. Practice saying no. Have that be the default. And unless there's an amazing reason to say yes to something, then don't do it. And that's how you like actually get control back over your life. You have to say no to some good things in order to say yes to some great things.
You heard of the Derek Silvers? If it's not a hell yes, then it's a no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's that same kind of idea. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. Love it. Thank you for sharing that. Well, speaking of that book, is that your biggest takeaway from it, or are there any nuggets that that rings a bell?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was one of my biggest takeaways that I use a lot because there's so many different ways you can use that with
Mm,
work, with everything. And then yeah, just this idea of like less but better,
mm,
which is kind of that same approach where I have one jacket that I own and I've had it for a couple of years and it was a little bit more expensive jacket, but it's is it a great jacket and I don't need five different options. I just need
yeah.
one that is less but better and that's more simple. I never have to think about what jacket to wear. That decision's made for me because I made a choice once that makes that decision to take away 1,000 decisions in the future.
Mm,
So I just kind of like that idea of like how can I do something less but better?
yeah.
And
Mm.
I don't know.
And I think we can apply that to many things like human relationships or business and activities and many, many other things. Mm, less but better. I work a lot with people actually who feel either because of their childhood or their family conditioning, feel very guilty whenever they spend money on themselves. And sometimes when talk about minimalism, or as you call it, frugalism, I don't want it to become another guilt trip for themselves. Do you have any advice for someone when they are treating themselves kindly, maybe spending on memories and experience, and yet still feel very guilty?
Yeah, so I had this for a really long time
Do
because
you?
um yeah, like there was years where like we probably went out to dinner 3 times a year and stuff like that. We were spending no money because we wanted financial freedom like so bad. Um, and that was, and then when it actually came to spending money over the past couple of years, I've been trying to get better at this and like actually
Mm.
focusing on it. Um, I was feeling super guilty about it, and I'm like, this is a waste. We don't really need this. And I think this idea of so generally entertainment and fun is about 5% of most people's budget, or it should be. Um, and most people start with cutting that 5%. Like, all right, I'm gonna stop going out to dinner, and that's how I'm gonna start saving money. I'm gonna stop going to the movies. I'm gonna stop buying clothes. That's how I'm gonna start saving money. Whatever your fun thing is, that should be the last thing that we cut.
Oh.
And I've kind of been realizing this, I've been like, it's okay to spend some money on yourself and just enjoy some things, not like excessively, but it shouldn't be the first thing that we cut is our own happiness and entertainment and joy. Like, unless it's like completely wasteful, you can have a lot of fun without spending money. But if there's something that you really enjoy, if you enjoy having, like, I have high quality coffee that's like 3 times more than from the store that I make at home still, so it's still cheaper than actually buying out. But I really enjoy that. So I'm okay with spending $1 a day on coffee when I could spend, 27 cents a day on coffee. Like I'm okay with some things like that, or I'm okay with spending a lot of money to go on vacation and make memories that are going to be really cool. Um, well, we can still do that cheaper than most people can. We can still like enjoy that. So yeah, just realizing that it's okay to spend that little bit, but really focus on if you can, your main three expenses are going to be your housing, your transportation, and your food. So if you can cut all of those, which we've done, we house hacks, we live like at half the price that most people do, and we live for
Mm.
free for many years. Our transportation, we do something called car hacking, where pretty much we buy older and used cars, and then if you sell them every couple of years, it's pretty much exactly what you paid for them, and you just cycle through cars that didn't really cost you anything. And then our food, we cook at home and, make cheaper stuff at home, then we can spend money on our entertainment without even having to worry about it because that doesn't really make an impact when you're saving thousands of dollars a month on the other stuff. A couple hundred on that stuff doesn't really matter.
Mm. I don't even know where to start. I guess we can talk forever about your house hacking and car hacking, but I think people will go to your channel for details on those in their lives. So, can you expand on the idea that many of us have betrayed our life for money, or people get into the trap of earning and riding the treadmill? You said it really well in your videos. You say, well, we work so much and then we're so tired and exhausted. And then we come back, we just watch telly, do something mind numbing or self soothing to recharge, and then we forget about the dreams. And so many people say, well, when I was younger, I really wanted to be an artist or a writer, but now I'm so tired, I can't even do it anymore. And then at some point, to buy this big house, they have kids, and it becomes impossible to drop it. Mm, so yeah, how do people betray their life for money? It sounds really sad.
Yeah, no, I mean it's extremely common. We spend the best years of our lives, the best time of every day working for money. Um, and most people are stressed about money. There's a stat that like 42% of people have had like panic attacks or cried in the past 30 days because of their finances. So it's something that's super important and it's super stressful for people. And then they like you talked about, they have this lifestyle inflation where they get a raise, and they get a bigger house, and they get another raise, and they get a nicer car, and they get another raise, and they, like they just do private school instead of public, and they go through this thing. And I think you almost have to come to that point where you do have a crisis and you realize what is important to me. Is it important that I'm I have time to spend with my kids and I get to do something that I love every day, or is it important to have this nice house? Because that's a huge step to move to a smaller house, but if it saves you, you know, 20% on your budget and you can take one day off a week, that is the exact same. then is that a trade that you're willing to make? Is it worth getting rid of that new car that you really like and going back
Mm,
to a cheaper, older car? So kind of getting to that point where yes, you might have screwed up, but you can also go from like people have gone from really bad
mm,
situations to financial freedom in under 10 years.
mm,
Most people can do it, but most people will not do it because they're not willing to make those big things. It's not like little changes. It's are you willing to change your life in order to change your life? And most people aren't. They're tired. And when you are tired, you're on the couch, you're doing all that stuff. The thing that really helped me because I was doing that. I was working full time. I had two part-time jobs and I was running a YouTube channel while renovating a house. So like I was just waking up, working, and then like falling asleep like at the end of the day for years. But I was reading books like in the car, I was listening to them on Audible, I was watching YouTube videos, I was like keeping myself inspired and keeping that end goal in mind of like when I have kids, I will not be doing this. I guarantee you that. And it just took a couple of years of like extreme sacrifice to be have like a life where when people ask me how my week is, I like always feel guilty because I'm like, I worked a little bit and we went to the park and I don't remember what else I did. That was most of my week. Like it was super chill. And like you feel guilty about that, but it was because I put in all the stuff that nobody else is willing to do. So are you to the point where you want to have that type of lifestyle? And if you are, then like you have
mhm.
to make sacrifices or you won't, So
It's
it's
also
very common to do
it's also about seeing wealth differently, I feel, as in the narrative that you've just put out. So in a way, you're proud of the time and freedom and the time spent with your kids that you have, but you're not necessarily flaunting your wealth. You know, you're prideful not because of the number in your bank account, but because of the life that you're living and the life energy that you
that.
have. I don't know if you've read the book Die with Zero.
Yeah.
Yeah, which talks about the life energy that you have and what you have now, rather than a pseudo number that you used to brag.
Yeah, I think yeah, a lot of people like the house, the car, the number of whatever money that they have is like that's their identity.
In the bank.
Um, yeah, exactly. Like they need this big chunk of money or this really nice house in order to show off that they're successful. But when you don't care what other people think about you, like that's a huge step of this. It's
Mm,
just not really caring too much. Which might take a while.
mm,
But but yeah, I think a lot of it just comes down to like the pressure of everybody else is doing this, so I have to do this.
mm. Yes, which we will talk about, which is how do you live a non-conformist to non-mainstream life and be okay with that. But yeah, I think ultimately it would be amazing if we can get to a point where we don't care about what's other things and life is not about proving who we are to others. What is that quote that you do to buy things we don't want to impress people we don't respect? There's this classic quote that
Yeah, you buy things with money you don't have to impress people you don't even like or something
thank
like that.
you. Exactly, exactly. So for people, I mean, one more thing to add. I don't think I would think say those people have screwed up. I think, at different points in your life, you make the choices in the best way you can with the limited resources and
Hmm.
information you had. Maybe it's your parents' story, maybe it's what the teachers tell you. But then now you've got, they've listened to this episode or they have exposed themselves to newer sets of values. Hopefully they can also make the change. So how would you suggest someone who feels stuck like that to rediscover some actual sources of joy that they can enjoy without money? And how do they find their like beginner's mind back? Where do we start?
Yeah, I think I like what you mentioned that yeah, they didn't necessarily screw up. Maybe you've never heard of this idea. If you've never heard of this idea of minimalism, the fire movement, then how could you follow it? Like I was lucky that I read this book that my mom recommended to me early, and that's why I like literally
So
if I hadn't read that
wise.
book, this other stuff would have happened. So I did get lucky that way, and some other people haven't.
Was it
Um,
Rich Dad Poor Dad that your mom recommended?
yeah, that was the first one, and now I'm like a couple hundred books later. Like, but that one led to another book, which led to another
Yeah.
book, which led to podcasts, YouTube channels, and all this stuff. So I think that the first step that I kind of did was brainwashing myself, like surround yourself with this all the knowledge that you'll need. And as you see, like that just makes so much sense when you read this book and you're like, this idea makes so much sense. when I first read Essentialism and Rich Dad Poor Dad and Set for Life and 4 Hour Work Week and all these different things, I'm like, why am I not doing this stuff? It works. These people's lives have been changed. Like like you get inspired by this stuff and you continue reading and learning. And that's a trait of most successful people that I've ever met. Is like they're lifetime learners, even when they're billionaires, they are lifetime learners, and that's what leads to a lot of their happiness. Once they get to a certain point of money, they realize that money was not the point. Like they're like, oh well, I'm now, worth X amount of money, and that doesn't make me happy at all. So it's this, I think growth and learning really makes you happy, and that's
Mm.
what I really enjoy. That's why for most of this year I've been reading like a book a week, and I got away from reading for a while, and going back to reading consistently every day and listening to audiobooks and stuff has really just, it just makes me happier. And then also like just taking time to like when's the last time you actually like tasted what your coffee tasted like? Like taking some time to slow down and be like, what does this food taste like? What does this coffee taste like? Kind of makes you realize that you can get enjoyment out of almost everything when you slow down a little bit and you take time to focus on what's actually important, what actually brings me joy, instead of just always trying to rush to get to the next task, the next thing. Oh, I gotta finish this so I can make food, and then I gotta eat food as fast as I can so I can leave, and then I gotta get there as fast as I can so I can start the next thing. And then I gotta and trying to slow down a little bit.
I can already imagine people, especially, they might say, oh, it's easy for you in your young age. I'm like now in my 50s. I've got kids, people who rely on me. My wife doesn't work. What about insurance? If I quit my job, there's no insurance. This is America. My kids needs me. Um, and everyone needs me to have a stable job. My parents will worry. They'll be disappointed in me. Is there any wise words you can say to that, if any?
Yeah, like I'm not just recommending like people just leave their jobs with no plans.
Mm,
Like this might involve like you take those nights and weekends and you build another source of income that can eventually replace your job, which might take years to build, but anybody can start a business. That's how most millionaires are made, is starting their own businesses, or investing in real estate. It's a huge way people build wealth. Um, there's a million different paths you can take, but most people don't really want to do that. So, and also like if people do judge you or whatever, if you're worried about that, then I wouldn't, that's its own its own struggle. Like people are gonna think you're weird if you do anything that's unconventional, and if you do something like there's this quote that I think was in the 4 Hour Work Week, that everything popular is wrong, and that's like how I live my life. Just like if everybody's doing that, then I'm just gonna assume that is not the best way to do it, and it's probably just really a dumb way to do it. So I'm gonna try something else, and that's gonna be a very small majority, like a very small minority of people who are gonna live their lives this way. Not everybody's gonna do this stuff. Not everybody's gonna be a YouTuber, a podcaster, a business owner, an investor. Um, but if you do, then those people generally have kind of cool, non-conventional lives. So
mm.
yeah, I don't know.
There are the arguments that number one, some people say that there's no such thing as a passive income. And then some other people say, well, surely not everyone gets to be an entrepreneur or enjoy your YouTube lifestyle. Some people got to work in a job. Otherwise, who would work in a job? What would you say to that?
I mean, first of all, there is passive income. If you look at like dividend stocks, like you put money in, and then it pays you dividends. That's pretty passive. Um, and there's other things like that where you can build a business for 5 years and then hire people to do every single aspect of it, and then you'll make money while you sleep. Or there's this idea of semi-passive income, which is kind of YouTube, where I've built videos for the past 5 years, and I could take the next year off, and I could still make a decent amount of money, because
Wow.
that's going to pay me while I sleep. I make money day and night. It's obviously going to die off quite a lot if I stop posting, but it's not necessarily 100% passive, but it's way more passive than showing up somewhere 8 hours a day. If I can work one day a week and still keep this machine running, then um, that's kind of my more idea of realistic passive income.
I like that because it's not so black
If
and
you have
white. It's not completely passive, like you're just lying there, but it's not as active as a
mm.
conventional job. Cool.